Hey guys, welcome to today's episode. And for today, I'm going to give you guys my review of Alien Earth Episode 7, Episode Emergence. It starts off where the last one left off. Slightly has Arthur in his quarters, still with the facehugger on him. Slightly is contemplating a situation. Smee comes in and sees what's going on. Slightly gets him to help him in spite of his reluctance. The Prodigy staff, led by Kirsch, they investigate the lab. Cavalier, he starts becoming fascinated with the eye alien when he sees the surveillance footage and sees how the eye alien is basically responsible for what happened to Toodles. Wendy comes to the lab and is shocked by Toodles' death, and she becomes disgusted by Cavalier wanting to cover it up. Hermit informs Wendy that Arthur turned off their trackers, which can allow them to escape. Wendy wants to get the others, but only Nibs comes along. And throughout the episode, Nibs is starting to act more and more erratic. Before leaving, Wendy lets the Xeno out of its cage, which kills the staff inside the lab. This act causes Hermit to become concerned. Kirsch catches Smee and Slightly trying to bring Arthur's body outside of the building, and to their surprise, he helps them out. Arthur wakes up from his comatose state. Smee and Slightly, they try to lie about the situation, about what's happening. Arthur, because he doesn't at this point, he doesn't really know what's going on after being attacked by the facehugger. His memory isn't very clear on what happened to him, but he can tell that Smee and Slightly are not being truthful, and tries to get them to, come forth and be honest with them. But unfortunately, before they can get to that, the alien that was growing inside Arthur breaks out. They bring Arthur's body to the meeting point of where they're going to meet up with Morrow. Morrow arrives with a team of Weyland-Yutani soldiers. Morrow is unhappy to see that Arthur's body is empty and there's no alien creature, and takes Smee and Slightly hostage. Boy Cavalier, he attempts to communicate with alien ice slug. He gets some conversation going, and through this event he decides he wants to get the eye alien to attach itself to a human, and the scene ends with him saying that he knows the perfect host for it. During Wendy and Hermit's journey, they come across a group of Weyland-Yutani soldiers who are also about to apprehend them, but Wendy calls out to the Xeno, and the Xeno attacks them, essentially acting like a bodyguard to them on Wendy's command. Morrow and his team, they bring Smee and Slightly to the lab, where they end up getting ambushed by Kirsch. Wendy, Hermit, and Nibs, they make it to the boat, but unfortunately for them, Prodigy security anticipated that they would be there. A standoff happens, and ultimately Nibs starts attacking the soldiers. A fight breaks out. Hermit, he's trying to protect his sister, but at the same time, he doesn't want to hurt his friends who are part of the security force. And the fight ends with him acquiring one of the guns and using the stun system on it to neutralize Nibs. But in the process, he may have killed Nibs' unit. And the episode ends right there with Wendy becoming shocked and angry at Hermit. This episode, it definitely had some highlights. It did seem a bit slow to me. I think really the whole point of this episode was mainly just to serve the finale, the next episode. Because the whole show so far, the main plot of the show, the whole narrative plot of the show has really been this corporate war between Prodigy and Weyland-Yutani. So it looks like now we're going to see that final showdown happen between the two of them. And like I was mentioning, to me this episode felt like it was just a slow-moving episode. And interestingly enough, the ending song of this episode was Song for the Dead by Queens of Stone Age. And that song is, those are familiar, it has a very high energy rhythm to it. So I wasn't really sure if that song really fit with the episode. I mean, it definitely fit with the end scene, because that end was definitely a very intense cliffhanger. But overall, I'm not sure if for the whole episode, if it really was a proper send off for the whole episode. But on that note, I forgot to mention this in the last episode. The last episode ended with Godsmack's "Keep Me Away," and I thought that was a really awesome choice. I think that might have been the first time I've heard Godsmack stuff plenty of times, but I think that was the first time I really heard that song, and I thought that song was so dope, and I definitely had to include it on my iTunes as soon as I had seen that episode. Some highlights for me in this episode, I think first of all was the lab moments, especially when the lights were blinking in the beginning. Really reminded me of the destruction of the Nostromo when the evacuation was going on. Two scenes with Wendy that I really liked. The first one was when she first comes into the lab and she sees Toodles' body, and Cavalier tries to talk her into trying to keep this on the down low, and she's basically ignoring him out. And the alien image sort of overlays with the scene. It sort of shows her she's not like, almost like she's starting to like give into her her primal survival instinct. And later in the episode, there's a scene where Nibs, Hermit, and Wendy, they come across the graveside of the children's bodies before they became synths. You kind of see the same thing again where image overlays. So Wendy kind of remembers her human self, and it's sort of her sort of tapping back. It sort of feels like it's her trying to like sort of tap back into her humanity. But unfortunately, by the end of the episode, it seems like with the incident on the boat, it looks like she's going to completely lose her. It looks like she is going to start losing her humanity. I really enjoyed Arthur's last conversation that he had with Smee and Slightly. So in the scene, he could tell that Smee and Slightly aren't being honest with him, and he basically tells them that he knows, and he's not angry with them. He just wants them to be honest with him, and he really just shows how much of a caring figure he is to these two kids, and it really just made his death that much more tragic when the alien breaks out of him right after that. A scene that was pretty intriguing was when Cavalier was speaking to the ice slug. It sort of calls back to earlier when Cavalier was talking to Dame Sylvia, and he said that he wanted to speak to someone who was smarter than him. Seems like maybe this ice slug will be that person. The action scenes in this episode were awesome. I mean, when the alien was attacking the Weyland-Yutani soldiers, it just came off. It looked so practical. It didn't look like there was any like CGI monster happening. Really, that was definitely well done. The scene at the end with the boat, just when Nibs attacks one of the security forces and she like breaks his jaw. I remember I myself kind of almost was just shocked, was taken aback when that moment happened. I really liked the whole moment in the end when Morrow gets captured by Kirsch. It was a nice sort of surprise for me because up until this point, I was really under the impression that Kirsch was ultimately that everything he was doing and now was he was starting to plot against Cavalier, like letting basically like not telling him about like Toodles' death, letting the kids take Arthur's body to meet up with Morrow. So really now it tells me that that this was that his actions, at least for now, it tells me that his actions were being done to basically capture Morrow. But who knows? He might still be trying to plot against Cavalier. Really won't know about how that works out until I see the next episode. As mentioned earlier, the episode definitely had its highlights. The action scenes were well done. They brought great shock value. I enjoyed some of the editing decisions made during certain scenes. I think there were a lot of moments in this episode that were a bit slow and uninteresting, but the episode really was just meant to set up the finale. So I guess we'll have to watch the finale and see how that plays out. All right, take care.